Are you a woman standing at a crossroads, eager for change? It's time to connect with your authentic and empowered self at Boss Leap. Join Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker in this empowering community where real-life stories of courageous and talented women inspire and motivate. Engage in honest conversations that foster well-being, drawing from our own journeys. Let us guide you toward profound growth and transformation in both your personal and professional life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker.
Welcome back to Boss Leap Podcast, the show for ambitious women who are ready to stop waiting and start building. I'm Dr. Angela Walker.
And I'm Dr. Sylvia Morris, and we are two physicians who've leapt from the exam room into entrepreneurship and podcast making. We created Boss Leap to bring you the stories, strategies, and the real talk that make your next Boss Leap possible.
And today's guest is giving us all the proof that the most unexpected roads can lead to the most extraordinary destinations.
That's right. Kelsey Albro Itameri graduated from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and did what any reasonable Hoya overachiever does. She tried everything: politics, reality TV, natural foods, bartending, and food and beverage direction in San Francisco.
But eventually she found her way back to her homeland of Washington State, to her family's land in the foothills of the Blue Mountains, and to the things she was truly meant to build.
In 2019, Kelsey founded Ita Wines, making low intervention wines, and we're going to learn what that is, that are deeply connected to place and to the land. Since her inaugural vintage, Ita has been named a winery to watch by Wine and Spirits. Kelsey was named one of the Wine Enthusiasts Future 40, and her wines have earned 90 plus ratings from some of the most respected publications in the world.
This is a story about trusting the winding road and what it means to plant yourself, literally, in something bigger than a job title, and about what it takes to build a brand from the ground up when the industry wasn't exactly designed with you in mind.
We are so glad you are here. Kelsey Itameri, welcome to Boss Leap Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel all hyped up. I'm like, oh, wow.
That's you, girl. That's you.
All you. And we have to add, if it doesn't come by the end of this, we have actually tasted the wines and they are amazing. So we'd love to know Georgetown School of Foreign Service to Winemaker. So looking back, and we mentioned all of the parts of your journey, and I'm sure there's much more that you could share, but looking back, what was the season of professional exploration preparing this for you this moment in time?
Gosh, it was, I didn't know exactly what I was doing or how long of a journey I was embarking on. And one of the things I found is that sometimes not knowing is a gift. And so when I graduated Georgetown, I thought my path would be one thing. And then I moved back home to Seattle, and I was a campaign manager for my father, who was commission at the time, which was not what I had expected necessarily, but it was a good opportunity. And then moved to LA and worked in reality television. And I will say that at each step in my journey, I did what was possible, that it was the last step, that I could have stayed in Seattle and worked in politics or public relations or advocacy in some way there, that I could have stayed in Los Angeles and worked in reality TV. I could have stayed in the Bay Area, that I didn't know I pulled forward. I didn't know I was being pulled forward. I often felt that I was getting zigzagged all over the place. But each juncture, there was an opportunity that I couldn't resist. And felt like, I kind of felt like a dog sniffing the wind. I'm just there hanging out. And you feel like, I have to go after that. And so I don't know if I answered your question.
No, absolutely. It's finding your way. It sounds like taking those opportunities that maybe pleasured your senses or that you felt like were just right at the time.
Definitely. Yeah. So if you're from Seattle, and certainly I spent some time in Seattle at the University of Washington, and you're in politics. Yes, I trained at the University of Washington, Harborview. Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. But Seattle on the western coast of Washington state is very different from eastern Washington. And when I think of Walla Walla, I honestly think of Walla onions, and I think about apples. I don't necessarily think about wine. So how did you come to be in Walla Walla?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for the layperson out there, basic Washington state geography, we are split down the middle by the Cascade Mountains. And so that creates a rain shadow effect, so that the rainy side is toward the Pacific Ocean, Seattle, all of that is the wet side. And then on the other side of the Cascades, eastern Washington is much drier. And that's where a lot of the agriculture, the Walla Walla sweet onions, apples, and grapes are here. And what drew me to Walla Walla was actually, I was not the first in my family to be drawn to Walla Walla. I grew up in Seattle, and my mom's a hometown Seattle girl. My parents at the University of Washington.
Of course.
My dad was an Air Force brat, and so he moved something like 16 times before he got to college. And for him, growing up, home was his grandparents' dairy farm in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. That's where he went every summer. And then he met my mom, and they started making babies, as you do. And he was working for UPS at the time and got sent to Walla Walla for work. He wasn't super familiar with Washington and kind of fell in love at that point and said, this feels like home. This feels to him like that's community that he grew up loving. And so fast forward almost 20 years later, when I was in college, my parents started thinking really seriously about Walla Walla and started looking at land here. And so in 2011, they purchased some farmland in the foothills of the Blue Mountains. And I have loved Walla Walla in Eastern Washington since I was a child. I still deeply love Seattle. I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. There's a lot of trees and a lot of clouds.
Yeah.
And here it's a big sky and big horizons. And I really love that. And so actually my husband and I got married on my parents' property in 2014. Wow. And then I convinced him that we should move to rural Washington in 2016.
Ooh, that was a sell, I would think.
I do still check in, like, are we still okay?
Are you good?
Yeah.
Wow. And so your first year on the farm had you moving hand line and somewhere, I remember the story of alfalfa fields and working a harvest internship. And that sounds like a humble entry point. How did you stay committed when the work was probably what most people say unglamorous? And tell us about that experience.
Yeah. So moving hand line in the kind of we did for free rent at the farmhouse.
So what is hand line? When I wrote that, I had no idea what it is. What does that mean for those of us who are city people, city slickers?
Let's talk about Irrigation 101 here.
Okay.
A lot of folks are familiar when you think of farms. You can see when you're flying over farm country in an airplane, you see the big circles. Those are from something called a center pivot. And so you have an irrigation system that is a big line of irrigation that goes around in a circle. So that's how you cover that.
So the aliens don't make those circles when I'm flying over. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a pump and a motor in the middle, and then there's a whole bunch of sprinkler heads basically hanging down from that big that goes around. So that's one way of irrigating a field. That's the most expensive in terms of infrastructure. There's a more old school thing called a wheel line, where it looks like it's sprinklers on a big long line, and it looks like big wagons. Have you
seen that?
I've seen that too. Yeah.
Has a little motor on it, and so it goes back and forth over the field this way.
Yes.
Least expensive in terms of infrastructure, but most expensive in terms of labor is hand line. And so you have 40 foot of irrigation pipe that's like this big around that has a head on each end. And so every morning I go out to the field, turn off the water, and pick up each 40 foot section individually, walk 14 paces, and over and over and over.
Oh,
and so,
my word.
Wow.
Moving a mile of day. Yeah.
Oh, that is
we were so fit.
That's your aerobics, your strength training, all of that. Everything. Oh my word. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what moving hand line is. And it is, once you get strong enough, it becomes meditative for sure, as anything might.
Okay.
Also a really wonderful way to get to know a piece of land, because you're walking back and forth over it. And so, well, the water comes down this way. Oh, this is where the elk like to come. This is where it's windy or whatever. You really get to know a piece of property. And that's what we wanted to do. So I think when I first moved here, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know that I wanted to be a winemaker. But I knew I liked drinking wine.
Me too.
And I knew that I felt a real connection to my parents' property. So something like moving the hand line was not easy, but I was willing to do it because I knew it was connected to something in the future, something that would be useful to me. And similarly, when I started my harvest internship, that was actually very difficult because I did not have an understanding of what I didn't know. I was someone who had worked in food and beverage and in the Bay Area, had gone up to Napa and Sonoma. I'd done plenty of wine tasting. I'd been to a lot of wineries. But in my mind, it was grapes, something, barrels, something, bottles. And it something is the hardest work, the most important, everything. And so I just remember feeling that first harvest, like I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I'm a grown-up, I'm a professional, I'm capable, and I'm totally incapable because I don't understand this process. And it was a small team. They were just like, go here. People have been doing it their whole lives. So big, like, hey, here's the big picture explanation. Yeah. And so it wasn't until like a month and a half in that I was like, oh, this is the flow, the workflow.
Yeah.
And so that was really a cool part.
So not like Lucy and the big vats stomping around, crushing the grapes and then bottling that up. Sounds like. If you're old enough to remember Lucille Ball.
Exactly. I send out GIFs in all of my emails, and I use that one.
I love that. And when you talk about harvesting, that is literally going up to the grape plant and deciding which bunch of grapes to remove in order for it to be processed to become wine, correct?
So here in Washington State, it just kind of address this differently, but here in Washington State, it's quite common for the vineyards to have separate ownership or same ownership, but a little bit separate management. So there are folks who are working in the vineyards all year round and managing that, and then makers are working with the vineyard manager to talk about farming decisions that will impact quality.
So the person that grows the grapes, it may be different from the person that helps to decide which grapes to make which vintage. Okay.
Yes. So, so the way it works is you have like a contract with the vineyard. And so for me, I have certain blocks of a vineyard, sections.
Yes.
That I work with every single year. And so I have a block of Primitivo that I use for my rosé. And those are the same vines that I'm working with every single year. So I get to know that in part of this larger vineyard.
Okay.
And I get to work with that vineyard manager to talk about the style of wine that I want to make and go into that. And then as the winemaker, you decide when to pick. And then usually the vineyard that works there picks all. Something to note for people who don't work in winemaking.
Yes.
I remember talking to my college roommate and like, oh, well, it worked. And she was like, well, can't you pick grapes all year round? Because grapes are in the grocery store all year round. And I was like, oh, no, it's once a year we pick wine grapes. And so they're usually ripe in the between August and October, depending on. So it's a one-time harvest season per year.
So you've talked about, you did your internship. So if somebody wanted to do an internship, it's essentially during that time of year that you're learning to do, or went to harvest and pick the best grapes.
Exactly.
So what are you doing the rest of the year?
Great question. So during harvest is when when they are vinified. And so you are processing the grapes. So for a red wine, you keep the grapes and the juice all together fermenting with yeast. Yeast is what eats the sugars in the grapes and converts it to alcohol, which makes it wine for us. That can take about depending on your style, 2 to 3 weeks of that maceration. And every day there's a lot of work that you get into. And then you press.
Does the yeast come naturally, or do we add yeast, or is it how does the yeast get there?
This is the thing about winemaking is like, if you can dream it, someone's tried to do it.
You can do it. Okay.
So there are certain wines that use native yeast, they call it, that's naturally present on the outside of the berries.
Okay.
Some folks use like you do bread yeast. And so those are all winemaking decisions. And a yeast catalog is like 100 pages, and it will tell you, well, this yeast catalog. A yeast catalog. It's a real thing. It'll be like, this was isolated from the Dijon region in this year. It exhibits bright strawberry aromas and is tolerant to X alcohol percentage, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole very brand.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But then the rest of the year, you have to take barrels ready for bottling and then also sell wine. It's not a wine museum.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So you trained at the, forgive my French, the Domaine Jean Chartron in Burgundy, which is in France, which we know is a serious credentialing. So what did that experience in France unlock for you, and how does it show up when you make wine today?
Yeah, so I went to Domaine Jean Chartron in the Pouligny Montrachet, which is mostly white wine. It's almost all Chardonnay. And that was important.
But no oak. Sorry. That's all about I know about. Okay.
Lots of barrel fermentations. And so for me, it was really important to have that white wine making experience. Making white wine is quite different in terms of technique and attention to detail, although attention to detail is important everywhere. But it's just a very different process than white wine making. And Walla Walla as a region is much more known for its red wines. And I've been passionate about white wines from the jump. So I wanted even more experience with that from people who are known to be very good at it. And so that was very important to me. But also knowing that eventually I want to grow my own grapes and be the person managing both the vineyard and the winery, which is not super common in Washington. It is.
And what about for women too, I would think, to do both?
Yeah, I mean, wine's a dude's game. I was very thankful that the place that I worked in Burgundy, it's a family-owned business, which was learn about how do you deal with a multi-generational family business. That's a total. We could do a whole podcast about family business.
I bet.
Dynamics are crazy.
There are Netflix series about it. Yeah.
Exactly. But this generation, it was rather who were running the operation. And it was really because of their relationship with each other and the fact that the brother was a good person, that it was the two of them. You know, according to tradition, according to family practices, it would just be him.
Father to son.
Mm-hmm. And so it was great to have, you know, a woman in leadership there. The assistant winemaker was also a woman. And so it is starting to change. Mm-hmm. I do think that if you're savvy, you can find people who are open to teaching women and giving women more agency than they've historically been given in this
very cool
industry.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you founded Ita in 2019, and you have this low intervention philosophy. What does that mean to you, and why did that approach feel non-negotiable, as you said, from the start?
Yeah. So here at Ita, I focus entirely on the eastern side of the Walla Walla Valley. So the valley's kind of has a slope on one side, on the eastern side, that leads into the Blue Mountains. And my parents' property is eastern side of the valley in the foothills of the Blue Mountains. And the name Ita actually means east in Finnish. I married a Finnish man, so there's...
that's perfect.
That is beautiful.
And so I knew that I wanted to source from as close to my property as possible. I feel this real sense of pure luck that I have access to property, and I feel responsibility because it's not an easy thing to come by. And so I want to, when we are at the place where financially we can afford to plant on my parents' property, that I know what grows well there, that I know what tastes good from what grows there. So in the meantime, I'm sourcing from as close to that farm as possible. And in so doing, I'm also trying to make it so that when you taste the wine, you're not tasting what I have to say about it. You're tasting what those grapes actually taste. Because winemaking is really it's very chemistry based. And you can make a wine taste the same every single year if you've had some of the bigger brands of wine where you know you're going to have Crawford Sauv Blanc and it's always going to taste the exact same, no matter the vintage, no matter anything else. That's great. I drink that. That's fine. But part of winemaking is that it's so reflective. It can be so reflective of the year and the place where those grapes are grown if you just get yourself out of the way. And so I want to listen to what these grapes have to say. And so that's why I use low intervention techniques. So I don't fiddle with the chemistry. You can add acid and water. I don't do any of that.
Nice.
I do native fermentations when I can. It is a little more labor intensive. I have also 2 children since starting the winery. So,
sure.
But, I don't use a bunch of new barrels that would give a very oaky character to the wine. I just try and take a little bit of a backseat.
And can you, we hear the terms like biodynamic, we hear the terms organic, and now I'm hearing low intervention. Can you kind of help us understand what those terms mean when it comes to me pouring my glass of wine and why I should care about those words or not?
Sure. I think it's really about what you like. I mean, at the end of the day, wine is part of the fabric of our lives. Is it a health food? No, it is an intoxicant. Like, we know this. We're not.
The icosanoids and the antioxidants, there are some benefits to that.
Absolutely. But, it's not like you're getting enough fiber in the day if you have your
sure.
So at the end of the day, in terms of like health consequences, there's not going to be a huge difference between drinking organically grown wine or not. Although if you're worried about those farming practices and what they do to the land, that's certainly more of like a moral compass to look at that through. So for me, there aren't very many organically farmed vineyards in Washington State, which is sad and something that I want to see more of. But I do source almost exclusively from vineyards that have sustainable certifications. And so that is something to look at if you care about farm worker health, if you care about environmental health, that's definitely something to be looking for. And then organic just have things that are on top of that, additional regulations, additional protocols. Biodynamics is a little more woo-woo, if you want to put it that way. Do things based on the cycle of the moon. And
I didn't know
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. If you read into it, you're like, wow, this is a little cheap.
That sounds complicated.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of as a consumer, what you're looking for, it really depends. And that's one of the great things is you can find wines at any price point for any palate. And one of the things I've learned I went back to school at the community college here to study winemaking. I've become incredibly confident in buying wine for myself because it's so difficult. It's so opaque.
It is.
Yes.
The labeling, the region, the twist off versus the core. I mean, there's just so many things to consider. Okay.
So many things. And so, I think it's most important, figure out a wine or two that you like, figure out a wine or two that you don't like. Because if you go to a wine shop and you tell someone, it's almost better to be like, I really don't like this. And be like, okay, I'll steer clear of that. So be like, I'm going to spend $30 today. Before I would be like, oh no, I don't know, a little bit in the middle. It's just, be really
okay. So here's a question because Sylvia can ask all the good questions. I am give me sparkling, white, tad, just a little, not little sweet, but so probably more cheap. But if I was to come to your location and I'm a connoisseur and I've already had the advantage of tasting some of your wines, so I know that they're super good, but what are the questions that I want to ask when I'm trying to ascertain, is this a good one for me or not?
Yeah. So it all depends on what good for you means. Sometimes a customer says, I want your best wine. I'm like, no.
It's all the best.
Right.
Because it's so subjective. But I think if you're going to a winery and, you have the benefit of tasting every single wine. And so you get to decide for yourself what the right wine is for you. And there's really nothing I can say. Sure, it helps if you like wine. It makes you feel better about wine. But, a lot of the questions that I get are about what would you pair this with? How long should I keep this in my cellar? Things like that. What's the serving temperature? Things about,
Okay, those are good ones.
Stuff like that. And so those are all good questions to ask when you're at a winery. And then also if farming practices and things like that are important to you, it's a great way to learn about that. And also if you're very curious about wine and how it works, especially if you're at a place where the winemaker's there, that's all we want to talk about.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
So this is kind of an off the cuff question. So forgive me. So lunchtime will be soon. If we're going to have just like a little glass of wine with our lunch, let's say we're going to have a salad with a little bit of protein, maybe some bread, a little cheese to wind up the meal. What would we drink today with you right now?
Today with me right now, I would drink rosé. It's really
I love rosé.
That's hers. You're speaking her language.
To me, there's something about rosé that's very approachable. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a serious occasion. Maybe it's just because it's pink, it feels fun. But in a more technical way, rosé is such a beautiful wine because it's a versatile wine. It's bright and has fresh acidity. So that makes it really great to pair with all kinds of different foods. And then it also does have a little tan, so it will stand up to whatever protein is in your salad, and it will be a nice pairing. It also just to me feels, it's like sparkling wine and rosé feel very appropriate to me to drink during the day,
Thank you.
Those are our go-tos. Very good, very good, very good. Love that. So What's the hardest business lesson you've learned since founding Ita?
I've learned so many. I think that, wine is a difficult business. Like when we get to business, all lunch wine aside, it's difficult because it takes a lot of money to produce wine. It takes money to store wine until it can be sold. And then it takes time to set. And especially as a brand new brand, that can be very difficult. And as I'm almost entirely a one-person business, when you're founding and you're creating a brand, you don't know what's special about it because you just made it. You barely had the chance to taste your finished product. And so I remember the first year or two being really intensively figuring out what's my elevator pitch. What is special about the wines that I'm making? And it wasn't even until last year that I boiled it down to like, these are low intervention wines. SEO worked too, finally. These are woman-made wines.
Yes.
Distinct about what I'm offering to the public. And also because there is a level of artistry to it, to be confident that it's different. It's quite different from most of the wines here in Walla Walla. And there were instances where I had consumers who were older and felt strongly that it was fact that would tell me that they didn't think that I was doing it the right way. And
bless their hearts.
It's very hard because I put so much of myself into this. And so to get them to say, yes, I'm doing something different. I'm doing it on purpose. And it's okay if you don't like it. There are plenty of people who like wines that don't necessarily like the types of wines that this male customer liked. So, getting that thick in and really understanding what you make and how it's different, that took a long time. And then obviously, cash flow is tough, all those things, all those small business things. They do take time to become part of you and become routine.
And so what keeps you going? As far as you get up every day, you are kind of a sole proprietor. This is a new venture, Ita Wine, or newish. How do you keep going?
I had a little bit of a mama bear awakening, I want to say, about a year ago. And the wine industry is in a little bit of an interesting juxtaposition with the transfer. Baby boomers had really driven what was demanded from wine demand for a long time. And now folks are kind of aging out of the consumption era of their life. And there's a new generation of wine consumers that are coming on board. And it's making the waters a little choppy in this business. Let's put it that way. Walla Walla, we're in the middle of nowhere. It's difficult to get here. For a long time, it was enough for someone to just open the door to the room and they would sell 1,000 cases out the door without even trying. That's how it used to be here. And I had just had my second child. I was looking around. I was like, I can't just sit around in my winery waiting for come. I need to find them where they are. And also, I can't give up. I have several years of wine sell, So I remember just being like, no one's going to save you. And you need to go to where people are. You can't just sit here in Walla Walla in the middle of nowhere and expect someone to solve your problems. And so I was like, all right, LFG. We got it online. We've got to go out of the bubble. We need to talk to different people. We need to meet people where they are and really make wine more accessible. It can make people feel bad sometimes that they don't know what to order, whatever. And so anyway,
I like the, and I see all of that when we met you. I appreciated the authenticity. As you mentioned, you kind of feel like that artistry of someone that's doing it maybe a little bit different on a smaller scale. but clearly with passion. And I think that is probably kind of the definition of somebody that's going to be an entrepreneur, that can withstand sometimes doing it outside the box, but still believing in what they're doing. And even though the dream's still there, the journey may change, but you still have the same dream. So you got to figure it out. So definitely saw that in what you're doing, and definitely tasted it. It was very, very, very good wine. So appreciate all of that. So let's say you could talk to your 22-year-old self again, and you're fresh out of Georgetown. You haven't done any of this stuff. You're trying to figure it all out. What's the one thing you would tell her?
Gosh.
Or the few things.
A few things. Sure, of course, a few things. In a way, I would tell myself that none of it is really that serious. There were bumps in the road in my career, bad bosses, coworkers, difficult situations that really at that time felt like the end of the world for me. And I barely remember them.
Yeah, now.
Or I remember one tiny piece of them, and you can so much of yourself and your energy to people who aren't paying you for that, paying you for your work. They're not paying you for your mental space outside of work. To protect myself a little more, and also to, of course, we all get tougher as we get older, but a little bit of my tougher skin to my younger self.
Yeah. If we could all lend that, that would be nice.
I know, absolutely. So Kelsey, you are a winemaker, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a daughter, an entrepreneur. What does your self-care practice look like? And if it isn't exactly where you'd like for it to be, how do you envision it? And then how do you protect that time?
Yeah, this was one actually I won't say that I was stressing about it. I was like, oh, this is a great question, because it's so difficult to find the time. But I have become a very sporadic meditator.
Okay.
I do guided meditations on my Calm app, which like my little.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. Yeah, we're Jay Shetty fans.
I found that even though, I mean, I did one this morning because I was thinking about self-care. Even when I'm not doing it more than even once a week, I find that it allows me to find the moments of enjoyment, to be able to enjoy a beautiful view on my drive to work, a cup of coffee, things that really are nothing more than a source of joy in my life. So that's been really great. And then as a mother too, I'm like, you know what's awesome? Taking a shower with no kids in the shower.
Oh, tell me about it.
The highlight.
These are the best. It's all relative. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, life adjusts, I'm sure, in a couple of years.
It does. Savor those moments. Yes, I remember those so well.
So, Kelsey, this conversation has been such a gift. The way you talk about your work, the wine, the land, it's all one thing for you. And I think that's exactly what a true boss leap looks like. It's not just a career move, it's an entire life decision.
And as I mentioned, we are rooting so hard for Ita Wines and for you and for everything that you're building. For our listeners who want to follow your journey, find your wines, and just be in your world, where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find our currencies on the website, itawinery.com. That's itawinery.com. And then on Instagram, we're at Ita Winery as well.
Great.
And Kelsey, where do you ship to all 50 states, or how do we find out where we can buy your wine?
Sure. So I can ship to a lot. It's a little bit of a patchwork. Some states are tougher than others, like Maryland is notoriously difficult, but Virginia's easy. And I do have a list on my website. I need to make my FAQ section a little more robust and find that a little more easily. But I can ship to most states in the US, and it's springtime, so it's not too hot to ship wine. Wine's something you don't want to cook. It's 100 degrees.
Sure.
On its way to Georgia.
Got it.
But
Yeah, I better order mine today before it gets hotter.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So Boss Leap audience listeners, please go and find Ita Winery, go and find Kelsey Itameri, and honestly, go find a bottle of Ita. That is your homework. We can all get behind that right now.
I think that's the best homework we've ever assigned on this show.
And absolutely. So Kelsey, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story so openly with our Boss Leap community.
And to everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us. If today's conversation moved you, inspired you, or gave you a little nudge you needed, share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to take a boss leap. And until we meet again, may you be well.
May you be well.
That's a wrap on another episode of Boss Leap. May this conversation enlighten your path toward personal growth and professional empowerment. For more thought-provoking and eye-opening discussions like this one, head to our website at bossleappodcast.com. Always remember to celebrate your wins and trust yourself. A positive mindset can push you out of your comfort zone and into far greater heights. Until next time, may you be well.
Before we go, there's one more thing the lawyers have asked us to include. You know, it's the legal language, and you know how doctors love lawyers. This podcast is presented only for educational and entertainment purposes. Although we are doctors, on this show, we are just your friends. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Understood? Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.